Welcome to Khanversations. I'm Muqtedar Khan, your host, and today I'm going to talk to you about the biggest deal in history between the United States and European Union. The two entities together are about $50 trillion. They are about 44% of the global GDP. EU is about $20 trillion. The US is $30 trillion. And so you can see that they are also the biggest trading partners clearly in this world. But surprisingly, this week, in the last like 6-7 days, Europeans have literally succumbed to do two deals which are not favorable to them. So last week, UK announced this deal with India, which was actually signed several weeks ago, but they kind of had a formal unveiling of the deal in which India clearly got the better of UK in the bilateral trade agreement. And in this deal, Trump basically thumped the European Union. Once I give you the key elements of the trade deal between Europe and EU, you will be stunned as to the concessions that Europe has made to the US. And if this thing really works out and does not trigger a massive inflation in the US and reduces the total trade between Europe and the United States significantly, I think Donald Trump has transformed both the global economy and the US economy undoubtedly. So before I go into the details, if you have not already subscribed to Khanversations, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, press the bell icon, and don't forget to share this video with your socio-political network. And if you want to support the channel, you can become a member by joining the channel. So this is the broad, shall we say, key elements of the trade deal which Ursula von der Leyen and Donald Trump announced in Scotland today. Number one, all goods that are exported from Europe to the US will now have a 15% tariff. President Trump was threatening 30% if there was no deal. Now that they have a deal, it's at 15%. This is 5% more than what UK got and what was the minimum. The best deal that you can potentially have is 10%. So it's not just 15% on everything. There's actually 50% on aluminum and steel, and Donald Trump has not given them an exception on that. So there are some goods which will have higher than 15%, like aluminum and steel. And a year from now, we will have Trump announce tariffs on pharmaceuticals. We will see what happens at that time. But right now, for most of the key elements, especially automobiles, etc., which is very important for the German economy and German exports to the US, it's going to be 15% across the board. And what will the US pay? Nothing. All US goods will now be exported to Europe at zero tariffs. It's like it's like the deal that the US got with Indonesia, but Indonesia is going to pay 19%. So there's a 4% difference, which can be quite significant in a competitive market. But still, it looks as if the US is dealing with not with the second biggest economy, but with some state which is afraid to challenge the US. So let me repeat that. 15% tariff on all European goods that are exported to the US, and on some it will be much, much more, like aluminum and steel, which will be 50%, and later on there will be higher tariffs on pharmaceuticals too. What this means is that if the US has the same amount of trade next year as it had last year, then the US will get close to $100 billion in just tariffs from European trade. But that's not all. There is more. So now the US will export everything for zero tariffs, which gives the US more advantage than it had previously. But EU will now invest in the next 3 years $600 billion in the US. So this is huge. The US is getting $50 billion from Indonesia, $550 billion from Japan, and now $600 billion in the next 3 years from EU. So basically, Donald Trump has now got $1.2 trillion worth of investment commitments from Asia and Europe into the US economy. And they all have to be done, I think, in the next 3 years before his term ends. And we will see how much of that really transpires. But right now, on paper, that is the commitment that the Europe is making, that it will invest $600 billion in the US in the next 3 years. Obviously, this is what Donald Trump hopes will lead to increased manufacturing in the United States. That's not enough. Europeans are going to buy $750 billion in US energy, oil, gas, and nuclear energy. I don't know what they're going to buy from nuclear energy, but oil and gas. They already buy a lot of stuff from the US already because they have been shifting their purchasing of energy from Russia to the US. And so it's going to be expensive, more expensive than what Russia was selling them at. For example, the liquid natural gas thing has to be, frozen here and then taken there and then unpacked before it's selling, unlike when it comes through pipelines from Russia. So there are multiple processes added to US exports to Europe. So Europe is going to pay a lot more for its energy. This is basically you can call this the Ukraine war tax. And so now they have committed to buying expensive US energy, and they have made a commitment of $750 billion. I couldn't find what the timeline is. So is it going to be $750 billion in the next 2 years, 3 years, or next 100 years? So they could say, okay, this year we will buy $75 million, next year 75, and so for the next 1,000 years we will continue to buy and reach $750 billion. I'm sure that at some point there will be some timeline added next 3 years, 4 years, or 10 years. I can't guess because I am not an expert on European energy needs. So if I knew intuitively how much energy Europe consumes, I could potentially guess what that $750 billion timeline will be. But whatever it is, US now has a guaranteed market for its energy. And then Europe has agreed to purchase significant US military equipment. When Donald Trump announced this, even he didn't know what the total amount is. As it is, Europeans have already ordered tons and tons of F-35s. They are part of the F-35 project. As part of NATO, they are buying a lot of US weaponry anyway. So because there is no number and no timeline attached, I just want to let you know that what it really means is that Europe is not going to move away from buying US weapons. So it will be business as usual as it was before. In the past a few weeks or few months, you could argue when United States commitment to Ukraine was becoming weaker, the Europeans were thinking of becoming security autonomous of the US. So they said, okay, we need to take care of our own security. We need to build our capacity. We need to buy our own weapons. We need to build our own weapons industry. So there was a lot of talk of basically becoming self-reliant. And now this probably will give these poor economies in Europe, which are not doing well, the excuse not to invest in their own weaponry, and then they will continue to buy US weapons. So while there is no commitment on volume and time, I think it is strategically of great importance to the US. So basically, what is this going to do? In principle, it's going to boost the US economy, definitely. I mean, with $1.2 trillion worth of investments coming in from those three countries, European Union, Japan, and Indonesia, definitely that is going to revitalize the US economy. Anyway, the point that I want to make overall is that Europe has completely surrendered. I mean, this big talk of putting together $100 billion fund to combat US tariffs. They were making a list of stuff that they would punish the US with, etc. It's all just vaporized, gone. So Europe has fully bent the knee to Donald Trump. And I'm quite surprised. And I think one reason why this has happened is because of the bad meeting that Ursula von der Leyen had with Xi Jinping in China. So Europeans are thinking we're caught between China, Russia, and the US. We hate the Russians. We don't like the Chinese. So while we don't like the Americans too, but we would rather bend the knee to the Americans because we've been doing that for the last 75 years anyway. So we would rather bend the knee to the US rather than China, because the Europeans could have fought back with the US if they had got a deal with China. And because it looks as if they are going to continue to have trade difficulties with China, because of China's manufacturing capacity and China's a bit more aggressive EV-related policies towards Europe, I think that you will see this. I also think that in the long run, these deals are going to empower the right in Europe, because eventually they're going to blame all of this on environment-related regulation and saying all these environmental and sustainable policies that we have had has made our economy less competitive than China and US. And that is why we are now having to pay all these tariffs, etc. And we're going to become even more uncompetitive with China and the US. So I think what you're going to see is a rightward shift, not just of right-wing parties, but I think even left of center parties are going to move more and more towards the right on economic issues. And I think protection of the environment is going to decrease across board, not just in Europe, but US and Asia also, as economies compete to become more and more competitive in this really dog-eat-dog environment. I just wanted to recap what I've been talking about with the UK-India deal. And in the UK-India deal too, UK is going to allow nearly everything that India exports into 99% of Indian exports into UK will be at zero tariffs, like US exports to Europe. But only 80 or 85% of British exports into India will be at low tariff rates. So, for example, automobiles are at the moment at 100%, but they're not going to go to zero, they're going to go to 10%. Not only that, but one of the most important exports of UK into India, which is whiskey, is going to go down from 150 to 75%. So there are many luxury items which UK is going to export to India, which is going to be at 75%. So Europe, and then on top of that, there is a possibility that hundreds of thousands of Indians are going to be working in UK, and giving a competitive advantage to companies who hire Indians, who partner with Indian companies to hire Indian service people, from chefs to yoga teachers to IT professionals, etc. And it's going to create a huge backlash against Starmer's government. Is going to create a backlash against Indians. I think there will be an increase in racism because the Modi government in India also wants to use it for domestic purposes. They are also bragging as to how they got a huge advantage from the UK India deal. So basically, this week has been, in my opinion, a complete surrender by Europeans. UK bend the knee to India, Europe bend the knee to Donald Trump. There is going to be a shrinkage in the global economy. There is no doubt about it, that tariffs are going to slow down international trade. They are going to cause a great extent of deglobalization. And as the world readjusts to the new world of mercantilism, I think the more aggressive economies like China, India, and US will win a bigger share of the pie than Europe. If you have not already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, press the bell icon, and don't forget to share this video with your socio-political network. Until next time, I'm your host, Muqtedar Khan. Take care.